Y'all planning for this?
If it is not documented, it is not done. That is how we operate each and every one of our businesses as Shilanski Associates. When we talk about Infinity, our CRM, and a brain trust, I'm going to tell you why and how taking proper documentation could really be the best move you make to CYA this year. But it doesn't stop with just you. You have to get your whole team on board. Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shilanski in an episode of Worlds to Conquer, and I want to talk to you about sloppy business owners, financial advisors, and team members out there, and how you can avoid falling into their same easily made mistakes. So we have an expression, and it's one that we kind of pulled right out of the medical industry, and I've shared with you a couple of times, if you've listened to me over the years, that we take a lot of what we do and look at other industries, not just the financial industry. We look at the medical industry as well. And I've had a lot of really great success hiring people to come into our organization that were prior medical professionals. And the reason is because a lot of the parts of what we do, they get the confidentiality. They get that they can't, bring home their work and talk about what happened. They get that they have privacy rights. They get the documentation. They get that they have to verify and check everything. Everything is sensitive information. So there's a lot of really great reasons that if you're struggling to hire in your current area, go look at somebody that flunked out of nursing school or got burnt out of nursing or is a medical assistant or used to run a medical practice. And even if they don't have a lick of financial experience, there's going to be a lot of crossover that you at least get to jump off of and start training from. So one of the expressions we took from the medical world is if it's not documented, it is not done. And that is a hard rule. So in the medical world, they use their CRM, they call EHR, so electronic healthcare records. And we call them CRMs, which is our customer relationship management software. But that's a brain trust. That's where you're keeping all of your information for your client files. Now, in financial advisory, ours are a little bit convoluted because there's no one great system that does everything. And this is true also in the medical world, that you could have a patient's file, but it doesn't always have, their history. So there's not always that comprehensive history that comes across. And then if you need diagnostics or imaging, you have to hit a link and go to something else. And in the financial advisory world, that's true too. So whether you're using Gorilla or Redtail or Salesforce, my baby brother, Micah Shilanski, and I created a internal system called Infinity. It's our CRM that we've been custom building for the last 15 years, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. And we kind of launched off of creating Infinity because we kept running into obstacles in which the software programs, you want to talk about subscription, which is when you have so many subscriptions you can't even keep track of them. Become a financial advisor because there's no one solution for everything. And so we kept running into stumbling blocks with customer relationship management software systems where it could do some things, but not all things. And then, it maybe was really good at note taking and keeping track of clients' 411 information, like their address, their social, date of birth, all that kind of stuff. But it didn't link to imaging, or it didn't have action sequences, or it didn't have blueprints. It didn't have processes, couldn't custom make the modules to be what we want it to be. So what we did with Infinity was we created a system in which we have all the 411 information, all of the client's information. We run our value adds out of the information that we're already containing inside of our CRM. So a value add is the additional things we're doing at least 4 times a year for our clients that complement the financial plan. So those are things like our 1099 report that goes out in January. This is a smashing success with all clients. Everyone has said how wonderful it is. They bring it into their CPAs and show it off. It was the easiest value add we ever created, and it blows my mind how well it goes over, which again reiterates that people don't want 82 pages of a custom built report. They want something simple, easy to digest, and that they can understand and use. And those are what our value adds are: beneficiary reports, long-term care reports, net worth reports, guardrails, buckets. We go on and on and on with these value adds, and we rotate them every couple of cycles. Occasionally, we'll have a value add that comes out of nowhere. So a few years ago, probably maybe even a decade ago, whenever Experian or Equifax went through their data breach, we went and we checked all of our clients' information to see who got compromised and who did not. And then we went out and we shared that with our clients and said, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we recently ran a check on your social security number. It looks like your information was breached. Here's what you need to do. Mr. and Mrs. Client, we recently ran the same search for you. Your information was not breached. And so whether or not you had two people in the household, Bob got breached and Sue didn't, we send them both an individual value add. Why? Because if you are Bob and your information gets compromised, what is Sue going to say at dinner? Oh my goodness, I wonder if mine did too. So we want to make sure we dishwasher rule that by showing the clients that we're checking for things that apply to them and also checking for things that don't apply to them. We did this just a couple of years ago for our Washington clients when they rolled out the taxation for long-term care as part of the payroll. We went through all of our working clients and said, Mr. and Mrs. Client, this is how it's going to work. This is when you're exempt. This is these other things. Then we went through all of our clients that weren't working and said, you might be hearing from your children that this is what's going on. It might be making local news. Here's why it doesn't apply to you. Here's what you have enforced for your long-term care. If you want to have a conversation about additional insurance or other opportunities, make sure you contact us. So we're always looking for ways that the information is applicable to the client and then what is not applicable and how do we get it in front of them. So we, in our quest to try to Mickey Mouse all these different programs, and I mean, we had the gamut, the same gamut you have. And today we still have multiple programs, but because we've taken such painstaking efforts to create Infinity, we've really narrowed it down where it's our brain trust. So it's our notes, it's our blueprints, it's our processes, it's our tasks, it's our auto generation for our value adds. We've also built our one-page financial plans inside of there. So as we built out these modules, we went through all 5 areas of financial planning and we keep and update information. And we are just excellent about note-taking in our office. All of your compliance meetings that you attend every single year, your compliance is going to get up there and tell you about all the ways that you can get sued, all the ways that you can go to jail and lose your license. In fact, I often joke that if you want to pass your CE classes, all you have to do is not read the question, but choose whatever answer sends you to jail in which you are only having bread and water the rest of your life. Because that's how serious it is. And we might think that that is superfluous conversation. We might think that that is, somebody just exaggerating to make a point. But the reality is that happens. It happens all of the time. The reason that I am such an exceptional note taker, and not with my problem clients, not just with the clients that I think could potentially, maybe they raised a red flag or I'm feeling unsettled or I'm unsure about something, not just with those individuals. I am also on board with doing this with positive experiences. And I don't just treat it with my clients. I want my vendors and I want my employees. Anything in which I am having an exchange of money or value, I want it documented and written down, an agreement signed. And then every couple of years, I want to pull them up and I'm going to review them because oftentimes we go through deals and think about this. I know you have done this. That you have negotiated a verbal deal with somebody, came to an agreement, and you started doing business and you didn't go back and get the documentation signed. This could be hiring an IT person to come in and set up your office for technology, and they send you a bill, but you didn't get a contract that said the scope of work. This is your employees, the ones that you hire or promote. Maybe somebody started as a receptionist and they've worked themselves up into a new position, and you've never gone back and updated their contract or even have an employment agreement in place with those individuals. So there are things that you have to document. And I know that you've done it because I've done it too. We all do it. We do it in our professional lives. We do it in our work lives. You have a contractor. Hell, I had a neighbor get in a hell of a lot of trouble about this. They're actually going through litigation right now. I gotta call her up today. But she hired a contractor to clear a lot. And he said, what trees do you want to cut down? She said, I want to clear the lot. That's what she said. I want to clear the lot. She didn't go out there and mark the trees. She didn't stake them. She didn't do any of that work. When the contractor showed up, do you think he accurately pulled up all the lot lines on the map, or did he go in and see an acre of land and cut down every tree? He went in and saw an acre of land and cut down every tree. And so now she's getting sued for the 6 trees that he cut down when she said, go clear the lot. And because there's no contractor agreement in place with her and the contractor outlining this scope, she's liable. She's 100% liable and is going through litigation. If you want to know what the cost of a tree is, I bet somebody in your state has argued this before a judge, and they have declared what the cost of the tree is. And you can go look that up in litigation. That's one of the ways when we had a Sunday brunch together, I was letting her know, hey, somebody's already ruled on this. This is your exposure. This is what it looks like, etc. So we do live in a litigative society where people are apt to sue. They're apt to press charges. They're apt to file a complaint. And it's super easy to do all of those things today. You just jump online and be damned with anyone's professional reputation or liability. You file your complaint with whoever you want, and then you put the person through the burden of having to defend themselves. Because if you think in this country that you are innocent and have to be proven guilty, then why the hell do they arrest you and wait for you to go to trial? Why wouldn't they just let you go and prove you guilty, then come arrest you? That's not how justice works in this country. You have to defend and prove your innocence. And the way that you're going to do that as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, hell, as an employee. How many times I've had employees say, hey, I was hired for this job. I really feel my employer took advantage. They didn't pay me, blah, 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 all these things. And I say, great, let me see your contract. Let me see your scope of duties. Let me see your job title and responsibilities. And that isn't in place either. And so all you do is have this verbal agreement about what one person thinks they've hired you for and what the other one thinks they're getting compensated for. And oftentimes, until you put that down on a sheet of paper, it's not the same conversation. You guys are remembering that entirely different. So you have to take time to document all of this. Now, you can go to any financial advisor conference in the country and you can find somebody that has been fined, regulated, suspended, lost their license, had to come back, had to rebuild their business, and done all of these things because, and they'll tell you the number one reason is it wasn't documented. That is the number one reason. So documentation saves your career. It saves your career and it saves you from potential problems. So let's talk about who documents things in our office. Everybody. If it's not documented, it's not done. I'm going to say it so many gosh darn times that you're going to end this episode, fall asleep tonight at 3 a.m. Your brain's going to wake you up and say, if it's not documented, it's not done. If it's not documented, it's not done. Because that's how important it is. So in our office, Shilanski Associates, our RIA up in Anchorage, Alaska, we document everything and everyone is responsible for that. We don't walk around assuming everyone's a liar. We assume everyone is honest. But if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And it didn't happen the way you think it did. So it is our financial advisor's responsibility and it's our team members' responsibility. So we have 3 pods. We have financial advisors and they are licensed individuals who can give advice and be compensated for it. We have relationship managers, and our relationship managers do not provide financial advice, but they monitor and foster that relationship throughout the client's duration of working with us. Relationship managers, on average, have more points of contact with the client than anyone else in our firm because this is who the client is calling to get scheduled, to follow up on documents, to make sure we have things for the meeting, to get copies if they, are traveling abroad and they need copies of their passport sent to them. This is the person that they're going to reach out to in a liaison capacity. Relationship managers are exceptional at meeting the needs and the unexpressed needs individuals. These are intuitive people that just get it. They are the ones that if you've got your hands full, they don't go, do you need a hand? They open the damn door. They open the door as you're headed out. They are already out of their seat. They're not asking if you need help. They're giving you help. They give help before being asked. So you know what, Shilanski Associates, I am really big about square pegs and round holes. So I want a person that is intuitive and sees the expressed and unexpressed needs of individuals and fulfills them to be a relationship manager. That is their superpower. And it is so gosh darn intuitive to them. They don't even know it's a power. They think that that is how everyone should be behaving because that is the standard in which they hold themselves to. The next pot of people that we have is our operations team. And our operations team is responsible for the movement of money. That is all that they do. These are your introverts. These are your analytical. These are your super compliant people that are detail oriented. And if you say you've got a big project, they're thinking of the 1,000 steps it's going to take to get that project done. If I tell a relationship manager I've got a big project, she's thinking of the celebratory party we're going to have after the project's complete, without seeing all the steps that it's going to take to get there. So these individuals are responsible for distributions, contributions, opening accounts, changing accounts, doing transfers, working with the client to get checkbooks, all of those things that revolve around the movement of money. And so this person, is also very intuitive, but quietly so. So they like to have quiet environments. They like to be dedicated and detailed in their work. This is the type of individuals that when they're working and you go sit down next to them because you want to say something or ask them something, it could take them 10 or 15 seconds to recognize that you're sitting next to them. And it's not because their peripheral vision didn't know that you were there. It's because they're so deeply concentrated in the work that they're doing that they're not thinking about your presence. They're thinking about the work that they have before them. So that is an operations person. So for our 3 pods, all of those people talk to clients. So anytime they talk to clients, and this could be a client called in, left a message, we return their phone call, X, Y, and Z. But there is a format. So when you join our firm at Shilanski Associates, we take you through a lot of introductory classes. So we have a learning management system online. It takes you through the company's overview, and then you can branch off based on the pod that you are part of thereafter. And so when we do these classes with people, one of the things that we go through is note taking. So if you have an interaction, if you have an exchange, if anything happens with a client, that note is inside of Infinity, our CRM. Client stopped by and dropped off his tax preparation documents. Boom, that's a note inside of our system. The note can't stop there, because if the client dropped off something, they want somebody to do something with it. So then our note goes into taking action and says, all right, the client dropped off their tax preparation documents. We start a tax process for the advisor to be aware of the tax information has come into our office. So at least it's hitting their radar in between meetings. We practice surge schedules. So a lot of times financial advisors aren't meeting with clients until that surge schedule, but they need to know things are happening in the background. And so then it also offers a task that we need to go get those documents to somebody. Now at Shilanski Associates, we partner with Retirement Tax Services to help us do our clients' tax returns. They've got a phenomenal model over there. They offer 2 types of memberships, Premier and Essential. We're a Premier member, which means that we get unlimited access to CPAs to answer our tax questions. And they also prepare our clients' tax returns. And we can pay for that as financial advisors, or the client can pay for that directly. In a world where there's a mass exodus of CPAs, it's really nice to partner with another company that we treats us with respect. Like if we have client questions, or if we want to talk about something before we go to the client, they're not running us over with if we do a mass Roth conversion and the client completely forgot that they have a $50,000 tax liability, then RTS is letting us know first before the client is made aware. They don't run us over with the bus and say, well, had your financial advisor not converted your Roth, you wouldn't have this great big tax liability. Instead, they're saying, Mr. and Mrs. Financial Advisor, do you remember you did this amazing Roth conversion for your client? Therefore, they owe $50,000 in taxes. I wanted to make sure that you brought this up so that if you need to have another conversation with the client about why you did the conversion and how important it is for their tax planning, you can do so. That is phenomenal for us. I can't tell you how many CPAs that I have had to bite my tongue on a conference call of being like, you mother, did you really just say that? Because when this client gets off the call, I'm calling you right back. I would have never done that to you from one professional to another. So it's a great service that we work with. But when we have those things that come up, those prompt actions, we got to take some type of action with that. So notes can often lead to action, but sometimes notes are just notes. Sometimes notes are, hey, this happened. This is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. So when we go through our training classes, one of the things that I teach, and again, taking this from the medical world, is SOAP, Subjective Objective Assessment Plan. So if you are brand new to taking notes, or maybe you've taken notes, but you don't know if you're taking the right kind of notes and if those notes are going to be helpful in the future, because by the way, when you have a problem with the client, it's not the day after you met with them. It's a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line that you got to now go blow the dust off of all your records and find out what you said and what you captured. So the importance of making sure that you have all of that articulated and outlined and documented inside of the client file is not to save your butt today. It's to save your butt when you've got something to lose in the future. And so all of our employees go through the SOAP training: subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. They follow the SOAP process, and I'll outline it in a memo, and I'll say subjective, objective, assessment, plan. And then I'll take them through training of doing that when financial advisors start working with our office. And I've got to tell you, I work with some awesome financial advisors. Every couple of surges, I'll go up to one of them and I'll say, hey, could you pull me the dictation for A, B, and C clients that you met with this week? And they'll say, yeah, absolutely. And they'll print it down and send it over. I said, great, here's what I'm going to check for. I'm going to check for subjective, objective assessment plan. I'm going to see if there's any red flags in your dictation. And I just pull them randomly. I'm not pulling them because somebody said there was a problem. I'm pulling them randomly because I want to make sure our financial advisors are doing whatever it takes to keep them in compliance and to make their lives easier. So I'll pull that dictation and we'll go through the subjective. The subjective is just that: thoughts, feelings, those kind of things. The objective is, okay, now what actually has to happen? In fact, I just did dictation yesterday for a business client that I have that they're frustrating the dickens out of me. We turned their ship around. They came to us and really needed to do some financial consolidation. We turned everything around. We created this great business plan. It was working so gosh darn successfully that they were more profitable than they had ever been. Owners were taking paychecks, which does not always happen in organizations. And they thought that they were doing so well that, against our advice, they went out and expanded the brand and opened up all of these different stores in 2019. What happened in 2020? Everything got shut down. And so their businesses were in hiatus for about 8 months. They could not operate. What do you think that does to a business owner? There might have been a moratorium on rent, but that rent was going to catch right back up. And when they were in big malls and different strip centers, strip malls, that is, not other kind of strip centers, but strip malls, they had rent that was going to come due at some point, and they didn't have any revenue to come in. So they owed, $100,000 in back rent for months that they didn't make any revenue. They didn't have any income coming in. So as we're going through that, the subjective is, me feeling the heartbreak, me, definitely seeing the stress of this business owner, what they're doing, da-da-da. And then the objective part is, you overexpanded beyond your capacity. You didn't have sufficient cash savings. You need to bottle up and you need to shutter 2 of your stores. You got to start consolidating. You either need to sell the franchise, which you won't be able to do because you're running at such a loss, or you need to shutter those stores, sell off of the equipment, and then cut them off. If your leg is dying, if it got so much gosh darn gangrene, you'll never ever regain that healthy tissue again, cut the damn leg off. Cut it off. That's the objective part. And then the assessment goes through just the technical information, right? So like revenue was down 60% in January. Here's where we're at a year to date, and it's going through that. And then the plan is based on this information, I think the client should consider blah, blah, blah. Now, I didn't say client should go do. I said the client should consider, because ultimately, as financial advisors, we are navigators. We're not pilots. It is not our money and it is not our choice. We must navigate the pilot towards clearer skies and making the right calls. And we need to give them all of the information in order to do that they can make an informed and educated decision. So I make sure that my dictation reflects that. If a client is going against financial advice, I send them out an AFA letter against financial advice. In this particular business client, I sent him out a letter. I said, you're expanding into your 3rd location. I think that is to your detriment. You don't have sufficient cash reserves in order for anything to happen. Now, at the time, it was dismissive for them. They were like, yeah, but look how great we're doing. We're so profitable. We'll just keep adding to the reserves. They had no idea. I had no idea that we were going to go through all of the crap we did in 2020. But it was enough to put them on the brink of bankruptcies for those additional stores. And so now I have this dictation. In fact, yesterday when I was chatting with him and I said, hey, you got to do X, Y, and Z. He said, you know what? Sometimes I kick myself for being so stubborn when you've told me so many times that I just needed to do this. And I look back at our emails and our conversations, and I wish I would have just followed your advice. If this person goes bankrupt, is that going to be on me? Nope, sure isn't. It's going to be on them. And so, this is part of that, having that dictation. Not that any type of litigation or complaint or anything is going to come back against me, but it's capturing all of that information. And so when I was in my office yesterday after our meeting, I came out and one of my operations person, she was like, hey, how'd that go? And I said, man, it's really tough. They're super struggling. And she's like, well, of course they are, because you told them to do X, Y, and Z. And I looked at her, I just started laughing. She's like, it's all in your dictation, because our whole team reads our dictation. So when our meetings get done, we have articulated and captured the meeting so well that every single one of our team members knows what's happening in that office with that particular client. They know it and if I write it well enough, They should feel like 80% of the time they're in that room with us, like they, 80% of the conversation. I'm not always going to get 100% because there's things that you exchange that are just between you and a client. But anything related to that financial plan is going to be captured inside of that dictation. So she was super familiar with it, even though she doesn't interact with them in this capacity. She knew what was going on. So the way that we look at dictation, when those financial advisors print them down, I'll highlight them and then say, hey, if the team doesn't have to come back to you and ask any questions based on your dictation, then you've done it successfully. If team members do not have to come back to you and ask follow-up questions off of your dictation, you have dictated successfully. That means that you've empowered them to carry out all of their actions. And so here's what this means for team members and financial advisors. No gosh darn acronyms. No acronyms, no shorthand. You need to spell it out. You need to articulate, because when you use an acronym, when you use jargon, when you use these certain things, if you have a brand new employee, that brand new employee does not know what to do with that information. And there's a lot of room for misinterpretation. So you need to be able to articulate exactly what you're expecting everyone to do each and every time. Now, when I finish my note, and no matter what I do inside of the CRM, I always add a line for next step. And if I call a client, my relationship manager got a hold of me, said, hey, this widow really needs to talk to you today. It was outside of a surge schedule. It was kind of a 911 issue. And I said, absolutely. So I called the client twice, went and left a voicemail. When do you think the client was going to call back? When I'm in a meeting. When I'm not available, the client will 100% call back. And I had listened to the voicemail, outlined it, put my note inside of there. And I said, next step, when the client calls back, if I'm not immediately available, here's what needs to happen. And then my team could take care of it. In fact, I didn't even have to talk to the widow thereafter. My team was so empowered and so informed. The client knew I was reaching out, they knew we weren't connecting, and they knew how to get something done, and that our team was instructed to be able to help this individual. It's really powerful when you document everything in your office that should be documented. And so this is something that a lot of people don't instinctively know how to do. This is something that you have to be trained on how to do. So we will do this in our pre-surge preparation. We will go through our team members and say, hey, let's go through these notes. We will periodically do an audit or review of internal notes. And if notes aren't good enough for somebody to know what happened, what's going on, and what needs to be done next, we'll pull that individual aside and say, hey, listen, you could put this information here. Thank you so much. I don't have enough information to know what needs to happen. And then we'll do that, and we'll train and we'll train and we'll train until everybody in the office can do the exact same thing. And most people want to do it because they don't want to have to be the only one responsible for having every conversation with a client or following up with them on an address change or an ID or all of these kind of things. And so I mentioned that our relationship managers are the ones that have the most frequent contact with the client. Well, our ops person oftentimes needs things from the client. And so if our ops person puts in there and says, hey, listen, trying to get a hold of this client, I need a 30-day statement for this account, Guess what? When that client calls in and our ops people are busy, our relationship manager can say, hey, I see they left a note here. This is what they're needing. And then that person can go, oh, great, thank you so much, and send the information. We don't have to play telephone tag. They don't have to have this volley of return phone calls, because the ops personnel has empowered the relationship manager to do that. Now, it doesn't become the sole responsibility of the relationship manager, but if she has the client on the phone, fabulous. And likewise, we do this reverse. If the relationship manager has been calling the client, trying to get them scheduled for an appointment and have not been able to, they will leave a note and say, we're really trying to schedule this person. I've got a few open dates and slots around this time to try to get them in. And so when the ops person is calling the client and they get them on the phone because they're doing something regarding money, which always gets you an immediate call, they'll say, hey, by the way, I see that Sarah in our office has been trying to reach out to you to get you scheduled. Can I transfer you now? This will take about 45 seconds of time to confirm that date and time. And so we are helping one another so the client isn't getting exasperated with multiple phone calls or the volley of having to go back and forth and getting transferred constantly. And that is so powerful to delivering massive value to the client, because now we're offering that elevated experience. We're offering that sort of concierge level of financial planning. We're really taking care of the client needs, and we're helping and empowering one another. So even though we have 3 teams, this ain't no gosh darn pyramid at our office. This is a circle, and we're all interlocked with each other. We need everyone to follow this process so that we can all do our jobs effectively to deliver value to our clients who are the heartbeats in which we serve. So TPR Nation, if it's not documented, yes, it's not done. If it's not documented, it is not done. You need to cross-stitch that on a pillow and put it in your living room because you need to eat, live, and breathe that constantly with your entire team. And sometimes if you're at an office that's been kind of sloppy, you're not great in your note-taking, this might mean 90 days of calling each other out, of saying, hey, Mr. Financial Advisor, thank you so much. Can you show me where that's documented? And then that reminds them, oh crap, I didn't do the dictation. I didn't do those things. Now I've got to go back and do those. And so you can respectfully call one another out in order to empower each other. As long as you create the dialogue and the rules around doing that. It's not like this. I don't see your note. You didn't put a note in the system. So-and-so's not putting a note again. It does not look like that. All right. That is for junior high. What it does look like is say, hey, Tori, I'm going through your notes right now. I don't really understand what's needed from me. Can you help me discern this? Oh, you know what? I was clear in my mind. It was not clearly articulated. Let me go back and edit that note. Let me go back and do this. Let me revise that. So there's a respectful way to create a dialogue and rules around calling each other out and saying it. And for us, and especially for our financial advisors, when we get done with our dictation and we all use a transcription service, that transcription service gets typed out. And then it gets sent to one of our team members to clean up. And they clean up, they highlight the actions, they distribute those actions inside of Infinity as tasks or start processes inside of Infinity. And then they'll be able to complete everything inside of there based off of the dictation. So we use that transcription service. So if the person doing the transcription doesn't have clear instruction inside of the memos, it is their responsibility to go back to that financial advisor and get clear instructions. And then also it is their responsibility to make sure that dictation is no longer, you cannot do longer than 2 days. So if I have a Monday appointment by Wednesday, and most of the time, oh man, our team, Chastity and Amanda, they're so gosh darn fierce that they won't let me go more than 12 to 18 hours without dictation done. So if I have a super long day and I've got a time conflict and I got to get out before my dictation's done, which we really try in our office not to do. We try to have all of our meetings, finish our dictation, then leave the office. But let's just say it happened. That next morning, when I wake up, I will have an email of the dictation that was missing and a question about when I'm supposed to get those done. And if I don't get them done within 2 days, there's scheduling time on my Saturday calendar to finish my dictation. That is how fierce it is in our office. And I want them to do that. A lot of times team members hate the idea of nagging and following up with their bosses or their leads, their managers, their financial advisors, whatever it is. Why? Follow up. I've got 1 million things going on in my head. So if I'm not getting you something that I owe you and I'm responsible to make sure I'm getting with you, get with me respectfully. Get with me respectfully until I make sure I've got you whatever you need to be at your absolute best. It is my responsibility to make sure that happens. But sometimes these are going to get dropped or I'm putting out one fire and I didn't get to whatever you needed me to get to. So follow up respectfully until it gets done. A lot of times our team members will say, when do I stop following up? When it gets done. You stop following up when it gets done. And if you followed up on something exhaustively, then here's how you phrase it in an email. Mr. or Mrs. Financial Advisor, I have followed up with you several times regarding X, Y, and Z. In order to make this productive for both of us, could you let me know if this is no longer a priority? If it's no longer a priority, I will remove it from following up on, or I will keep it on here until it gets done. Please let me know. And then that person gets to make a call and say, you know what? I don't need you to do that. That's just a nuisance thing. Or no, keep following up because I'm going to screw the pooch and not get this done. And I'm going to put myself in a bind. So make sure you ask them. There's respectful ways to do that. If you have questions, if you're like, hey, listen, I don't know how to talk to so-and-so about X, Y, and Z, email us at lifestyle@theperfectra.com. One of the beautiful things about the memberships that we offer for financial advisors is that we've got this collective community of people that want to present problems. And we put the good, bad, ugly out there. It says, hey, I've got this going on in my office. Anyone else relate? Anyone else been out there that's dealt with this before that can give me some do's or don'ts? And then we unabashedly, no BS, help each other because we are in the pursuit of perfection. We are in the pursuit of perfection at the Perfect RA. And the only way to achieve that is by being honest with ourselves and asking for help from people that are willing to give it and want to give it. But we have one rule at the Perfect RA about giving advice. No BS, no Bolshevik. You either did it and you've got experience with it or you shut your mouth and listen. That's how we take it, is if you don't have experience, you don't get to have fake expertise, you don't get to tell people how they should be doing something. You only get to speak from a place where you have some knowledge, understanding, or experience in. And if you don't, take a seat. And this happens to Matt, Micah, and I all the time. They'll say something and they'll say, you know what? I don't really have experience in that. Does anyone else in the room? We are not omnipotent. We're just in the pursuit of perfection because it is possible. It is possible, but we must take action. So TPR Nation, let's go through those action items right now. Somebody call their grandma, aunt, or mom and get that cross-stitched on a pillow. If it's not documented, it is not done. That needs to become the anthem in the office. Second thing, SOAP. You need to do up a mock memo of what happened in a meeting and then what that looks like, and give everyone in your office a template: subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. Third action item, the next time your surge wraps up, randomly choose names out of a hat off of the calendar and everyone read everyone's dictation and look for very specific things. Do I understand what happened in the meeting? Do I understand the actions our office needs to take? Do I understand the actions the client needs to take? Is there anything else that we need to prepare for that next meeting? That's the filter you need to be running your dictation through to make sure everybody in the office understands what's going on. And don't just make this exclusive for financial advisors. Your team members talk to your clients more than you do. They need to be armed with the ability to create really good note-taking skills. So God forbid you ever end up in a compliance, regulatory, litigation issue, you're pulling off documentation and showing a whole timeline of everything that was captured with that client. You will not be able to guess which client becomes your problem in the future. And you will not go throughout your career without having a problem. You won't. You won't. Everyone runs into some type of compliance issue, and everyone wishes that they would have taken better notes. This is your opportunity to do so. If it is not documented, it is not done. TPR Nation, this is Jamie Shilanski in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. Go find people who share your values and change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA